everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anita. I'm a Zambian living in Lagos, Nigeria, and today I'm driving going to the mainland, and so I'll just be doing a short story time with you guys whilst I'm driving, and we'll just drive together through Lagos Island. I'm on Lagos Island going to the mainland, so I'm just going to be sharing with you my experience of I've had 4 cesarean sections in 3 different countries. So I'm going to be sharing where I think the best place to have a CS is in among the 3 countries that I've done my CS in. So let's just dive straight into the video. And so my first CS was 11 years ago. My son is turning 12, so 12 years ago in the UK, in Leeds to be precise. So I traveled to England when I was 28 weeks. I know I traveled late. I was supposed to travel before 28 weeks, but then because it was a first pregnancy, I was told that the labor will not start like early. It always starts a bit late, and it will start usually like 36 weeks, and so I thought 28 weeks was okay for me to travel. But then just before I traveled, like a week before I traveled, my elder sister was telling me about how dangerous it is to travel at 28 weeks, and that you can have a stillborn baby and all that. I was very scared that I was traveling at 28 weeks, but then because I had already made like prior arrangements and I hadn't known about traveling before 28 weeks, I was just like, I'll have to go ahead with it. And then so I started doing my preparations, and then on my visa, for that time I was not so enlightened about getting a medical visa, on the type of visa to get. So I got a tourist visa and traveled to the UK on the tourist visa. Well, I got my visa when I was like 3 months pregnant, and my pregnancy was not showing at all. So I didn't even tell the embassy anything about my pregnancy, which was very, very wrong compared to this time around. You have to make sure if you're traveling, you travel on the correct type of visa. Well, I traveled on that visa to the UK, and when I was about to travel, because I traveled when I was 28 weeks pregnant, and I looked like I'm about to deliver the same day because my pregnancy was very big. You know, your first pregnancy, you'll be just overeating, and you know, I was so big, I was so fat. And so I was trying to like cover my pregnancy, trying to hide my pregnancy, which I knew was very, very impossible. So looking back, I would have worn like a big gown, like a bubu or something that would just like, or a jalabi that would just hide the pregnancy. But then this time I was wearing a tracksuit. I wore a track bottom, and then I wore a track top on top, and I fastened it up because by the time we got to London, it was so cold, and I hadn't considered that when I was dressing up in this, because the plan was not to zip up the track bottom, but it was freezing cold, so I had to zip up the track bottom, and my pregnancy was just like all over the place. It was showing. But then luckily when I got to immigration, they didn't even ask me anything about the pregnancy. I was not even asked any questions about being pregnant, about the medicals, where I'm going to stay and all that. The only thing I provided was my brother's address, because apparently I was going to stay with my brother, and so it eased everything down for me because I was going to a place where I know and a place where I have been, and so it was very much easier for me than going to a place where I do not know at all. And so I went to my brother's house. I actually traveled with my husband. He stayed with me for 2 weeks before he traveled back to Zambia again. So my going to the UK was very smooth. After like 2 days, my brother took me to the hospital. I got a midwife and everything was done for me. I did my tests. You guys, in the UK, their medical care is so nice. I had a doctor. I would go for my doctor appointments. I would be given the drugs that are necessary for me. They would check up on me. When it was time for me to deliver, I was supposed to have my baby like on a Friday, and then nothing happened. So a week later, the same Friday, the doctors told me to just come in. Even if nothing happened, I should come in. So they induced me on Friday. Nothing happened. They actually put 2 drips on me. Nothing happened. They induced me on Saturday. Nothing happened. And I had heard so much about inducing, you know, that immediately I induced, like the labor begins immediately, and nothing happened. I was induced on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, nothing happened. On Monday morning, I was so devastated. I was crying. I was like all over the place. I was so tired. And so on Monday I was booked for a CS. I had my CS at 7 o'clock. I was booked at 7 o'clock, and I was so excited. I didn't even know what a CS was all about, you know, my first pregnancy, and I hadn't like checked up online what cesarean section is and all that, so I was just excited. So I went into the theater. I actually went in the theater with my brother's wife. She was heavily pregnant as well, and so we went into the theater together. I had my baby. It was such a nice experience, and it was timely, and I thank God that I traveled to the UK to have my baby, because by this time my baby was distressed, and it was just timely. That Monday was just the perfect time to have the baby, because after that I don't know what would have happened. So I just thank God that I was in the right place at the right time. And so I had my son, and then after my CS I was feeling like all energy. I was feeling like nothing happened to me. My body was feeling okay. I wasn't in any pain. And then during my CS, on the epidural part, you know, an epidural in the UK, the epidural that I was given was, I just felt like a pinch on my back. Maybe it's because I was like so excited. I wanted to go through with this, to just have this baby, and it didn't hurt at all. It was just like a pinch. And maybe because I didn't look at the needle, because I didn't even know what was happening. And so it was just like a pinch on my back. And then the healing process. So the day I had my baby, I had some Ghanaian friends in Leeds who came to see me. They called me when they were at the door. I was like, okay, let me come and get you. So I was telling my nurse that I want to go and get my friend. She's at the door. The nurse was like, no, you're not walking today. So I was like, okay. So she went and brought them in herself and everything. So the next day, when it was time for me to take my bath, 2 nurses came to help me up. 2 of them were holding my hands, and I stepped down. I felt so weak. I didn't have any energy at all. I was like, what's going on? I couldn't walk. I was so tired. I was so weak. They helped me to the bathroom. They actually bathed me, brought me back. Wow. The hospitality in the hospital in the UK is mad. It's crazy. It was so nice. It was like you're in a hotel. They'll bring you their menu for breakfast. What are you eating? You'd actually select what you want to eat. Bring you their afternoon menu, bring you your dinner menu. They were just so nice. It was just an awesome place to be. So I was happy with the hospital, with the treatment. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days before I was discharged. And when I was discharged, like 2 days later, the midwife came to see where the baby was sleeping, came to check up on me, and at 6 days they came back again. So I had like 2 visits before I actually took my baby to the hospital. And then this time I was given BCG injection. My baby was given the BCG injection right there at the hospital the day the baby was born. And so I didn't have much follow-ups to do at the hospital. And that was how my first delivery went, my first C-section in the UK. And then when my baby was 6 months, I got pregnant for my second son. And this time around I was in Zambia. So I had my second son in Zambia. I had my third son in Zambia. My second CS, the only drama I had about it was the epidural. I actually looked at this injection. It's so big. And then the person that did the epidural for me, he actually had to do it twice, because the first time he didn't really get into the place he wanted to get into. Because when they are doing an epidural, they're trying to get into the spine, into certain bones, and so he didn't do it, and it hurt so bad. And he's bending you over. You're in a very uncomfortable position because you're heavily pregnant and you have to bend over, and it was so uncomfortable. So the second time now is when he managed to get it right. That was how I gave birth to my second son through CS, and everything went well. On my third son, I went to the same hospital with the same doctor, though the person that did the epidural was different, and the epidural as well was done twice for me, but it wasn't as bad as the first one. And then after I gave birth, I had drama with my son, because when I gave birth to my son, they didn't give him to me to breastfeed, because after you give birth through CS, they would actually give you your baby to sort of like bond with your baby, but they didn't give me my baby even to breastfeed. Like after an hour they didn't give me my baby. I kept on asking, where is he, where is he? And after like 4 hours they came back. They told me that the doctor is suspecting the baby has pneumonia. And so I was like, okay, so what's going to happen to the baby? Even if the baby has pneumonia, the baby must feed. And they were like, no, they don't feed, they'll not, I'm not going to breastfeed the baby. They want to take the baby to another hospital where they have neonatal care. So they had to take my baby to another hospital, which is a complete different place from where I was. I was at MKP, a hospital in Kablonga in Lusaka, whilst my baby was going to be at our university teaching hospital, which is another area. And so that's how they took my baby there with an ambulance, and my elder sister followed them. They took my baby to that place, and when they take a baby to that neonatal care, nobody actually goes to see babies inside that place. It's like a secluded place. The babies there are fed through tubes and they're taken care of. The mother doesn't have to take care of the baby by herself. And so my baby was there for 3 days. My husband would actually come to see me, go and see the baby like 3 times a day, come here, go there. It was very stressful for him actually, and it was a very stressful time for me as well, because what happened is at the hospital, because when I went to the hospital there was nobody, like there was nobody who had given birth in the hospital, and nobody was like booked to come in. So instead of going to stay in a room by myself, I stayed inside a room where 3 people are supposed to stay. And so I was in that room, and then like the second day after I had given birth, somebody else came in and she gave birth. She was with her baby there, and so it was, the baby was crying, people were coming to visit her, and you know, it was a very hard time for me because I didn't know what was happening to my baby. I was telling my husband, when he goes to the hospital, take pictures of the baby, let me see the baby. My husband will take pictures of the baby. I'll be like, but why isn't this baby coming out? Because I don't understand. And I didn't know whether my husband was actually with the baby or not, or what the fate of the baby was. I was very unsure and uncertain until the day I was discharged. That was like day 3. I was discharged. They gave me a form that I would use to go and get my baby from the hospital, and they would actually have to also discharge the baby. It was not just a matter of me picking up the baby from the hospital. So when I went to the hospital, I actually met a friend of mine at the hospital, and she was like, we've been wondering why this baby has been here, because there's nothing wrong with this baby. Like, this baby is not sick. This baby doesn't even have pneumonia, doesn't have anything. So we've been wondering what the baby is doing here. We thought maybe the mother is having complications. That is why they brought this baby here and just wrote pneumonia for the baby. And so, and I was very upset. I was very upset with the doctor. The doctor is not my doctor that took care of me. The doctor that took care of me, like when I gave birth and everything, is a gynecologist. But the doctor that sees your baby after your baby is born is a different doctor. And so I was very upset with this doctor, you know, because he just put me through a lot of stress and put my baby through a lot of stress as well. Because for those 3 days that my baby was there, I'm not sure that they would have enough time to feed every child in that place very well. Because when I went there are like over 50 babies. Quite right, there are a lot of nurses. But when I went to the hospital, to the same hospital, it's a big place. They're taking care of many babies. It's a big facility, and I really appreciate what they did for my baby. But when I went there, I could see like cockroaches outside. I was like, no, this is not a good place for a small baby that has just been given birth to, you know. Quite all right, maybe they don't have time for fumigation, because every time there are babies inside that place, but I know they have to still do something about it. So I was very, very uncomfortable with that, and I had to wait. It was a procedure to discharge the baby as well. I had to wait to fill in forms for the doctor to come around, discharge the baby, and after everything, my baby went home with me, and I was so happy and I was so grateful. Even for the 3 days that they took care of the baby, I was so happy, because it's not easy to take care of somebody's child. So I was very grateful to the nurses. And then for my 4th CS, this time, because of my third experience of what I went through with my 3rd son, I was not so eager to give birth in Zambia. I was not so I was not looking forward to it. So my husband decided that I should travel to the US. So I started my procedures of traveling to the US when I think I was like 4 months pregnant. I started my procedure of traveling to the US, and I did this time around I was going to get the right visa. I was going to do a medical visa, because this time around I became more enlightened, and I think by that time I have grown up, because I have a daughter, and I had my daughter in 2019, and I had my son in 2010. So that was like 9 years of growing up as a mother and growing up experience and everything. So I decided to get the right visa to go and give birth in the US. And so a friend of mine hooked me up with a certain lady in the US, Margaret from SoCare. And so she told me what I needed and what was required of me. And so I paid up for my accommodation, just a small deposit of $200, and I paid up for my doctors, a small deposit as well of $200, so that just in case you don't get your visa, you haven't lost out a lot of money. It would just be like $400, which I paid upfront for accommodation, and $200 for my doctor. I got a doctor. I wrote to him, he responded, and I gave him all my medical papers and everything was booked. So for my visa, I used my doctor and my accommodation papers. I went for my visa, and I told them about my pregnancy. I told them about my 3CS. I told them about my last experience and why I wanted to travel to the US. And actually, the first time I was actually denied my visa, the first time the person actually who did the interview did not even give me time to explain myself. It was a lady. She didn't give me time to explain myself. She was just like, no. So I did my interview. I went back to Zambia, because remember I told you I'm a Zambian and I live in Lagos. So I went back to Zambia to get my visa. So I went for my interview on a Thursday. I was like, no, you cannot deny me this visa. I'm actually telling the truth. I'm going for what I'm going for. You know, when you're lying, it's different from when you're saying the truth. When you're saying the truth, you're saying the truth, so they must give you that visa. So I went for my interview on a Thursday, and the same Thursday I knew it was denied. As I was coming out, they give you a blue paper, tell you you've been denied visa, this. So I was like, okay, no problem. I buckled up. I went back, I filled in another form, and this time the same information, but now I filled it in a different way and explained myself. I explained myself in my application, and I went for an interview on a Monday. And this time around, the same lady that interviewed me on a Thursday was there, and there was a guy that interviewed me on that did my interview on a Monday. So it was my turn to go to the lady, and I told the girl behind me she can go before me because I don't want to go to this lady. So she went before me, and she went to the lady, and I went to the guy. So the guy gave me enough time. I explained myself. I told him what I wanted to do, everything. I gave him like the whole story, and he gave me my visa. He told me my visa has been granted to me, and I was so happy. And I'm sharing this as well about my visa, so that in case you're going for a visa and you're pregnant and you want to travel abroad, what I'd advise you, once you get your accommodation, you have a doctor that you're going to use, and these are real facts. You have your bank statement, you have money that you're going to use for your medical bills. Tell them everything, be truthful, and you will get your visa. The thing that why sometimes we don't get a visa is because we're not telling the truth. If you tell the truth, mostly everybody can know when you're telling the truth and when you're lying. So once things are straightforward and you're given time to explain yourself, you'll probably get your visa. And so that was how I got my visa, and I came back to Nigeria. So when I traveled to the US. This time around, I traveled when I was 29 weeks pregnant to the US. I wanted to travel earlier on, but my son was not feeling fine, and I was extending my travel because of him. And I think here you can travel when you're 30 weeks. And so I traveled with Ethiopian Airways because I have a mileage card with them, so I always travel with them. So I traveled with Ethiopian Airways because I have Sheba miles and it was going to be beneficial to me, so I would stay in business class when going and when coming back. So because of the comfort and because it's a long trip, the US is quite far. And so when I was traveling, I had to actually go to the airline doctor and do my medicals from there. I did my medicals from there, and by that time there was no COVID, and so I did my medicals and I traveled to the US. I traveled to Washington. When I got there, everything was good, and with the soul care arrangement I had, everything was so smooth for me. They'll take me to the doctors, bring me back, and I lived in a very convenient apartment which was near Walmart. It was just a walking distance from Walmart, from many supermarkets, that it was just nice. So the shopping was easier for me. And my appointment for my doctor, the day I was supposed to give birth, I was going to go in the theater at 9 o'clock, so I had to go to the hospital like 5 o'clock, because in the US apparently I did my tests the same morning that I was going to do my CS, because in Zambia you do your tests a day before. I guess that, or in case of blood and everything, they make the arrangements prior to that. But then in the US I did my tests the morning that I was doing my CS, and everything went well, and I had my daughter. The epidural in the US, I did not even feel anything about that epidural. It was so perfect. Even my stitches, I forgot to mention, like on my third pregnancy, I had my stitches were like on the outside, you could see them. I had like folded skin everywhere. I had like keloids, so visible. But then this time around, when I went to the US to do my CS, it was so neatly done. In Zambia, I know that they use stitches to hold everything together, but in the US they don't use stitches for it, and all those folded skins that were on the outside, everything disappeared. It was so neatly done. And I forgot to mention that in Zambia, when I did my CS, when I was discharged to go home after picking my baby up, me and my husband reached the house, and because I was so stressed because I was in the hospital where we took my baby for hours before they discharged my son, and so by the time I was getting home, I was in serious pain. I was in serious pain. I took the painkillers that I was given and the pain was still there. My husband actually had to drive me back to the hospital, and they had to go and give me an injection before I could get myself again. I was in so much pain. But in the US, after my C-section, they did not even give me any drugs to drink. They didn't give me any antibiotics. In the UK, I can't remember whether they gave me antibiotics to drink like after my CS, honestly, because it's been so long ago. But then in Zambia, after your CS, you're given antibiotics to drink for a certain number of days. In the US, I was not given any antibiotics to drink. The only thing that they gave me to take was like painkillers, and these painkillers were very strong, because this painkiller was like codeine with another, whether it was codeine with paracetamol or codeine with tramadol or something. It was very strong. I didn't even take not even one of these painkillers. I didn't take it, and because I never had that pain after I was discharged, I was like 100%. The next day in the US, I got up and bathed myself. I had my strength back. Like, I had my CS on a Monday. On Tuesday morning, I got up by myself, stood up, went to the bathroom, bathed myself. I had like energy 100%, took care of my baby. And this never happened with my first CS. It never happened with my second or my third CS. And I cannot tell myself that I have become stronger, because as you're growing older, I don't think you're becoming stronger. As you think you're becoming, your body is getting weaker. So I loved the medication that they give in the US. Whatever they put in their drips really works. Like, after my CS, I didn't take any painkillers, I didn't take any antibiotics, and I was just like 100% okay. And I was just lucky that I was there. It was timely for me because I traveled alone. I didn't travel with my mom or with anybody, and so I was so happy that I got my strength back like the same day, because I had to take care of my baby by myself, and so it was so nice. So in this video, my point actually is that the US is one of the best places somebody can give birth to. Like for me, from Zambia, UK, US, the best place was the US for me. My CS, everything was done professionally for me. The service, the hospital, everything was perfect. From the first time, if I had known my first child, I'd have gone to the US, because the delivery there was like 100%. Not that the UK was not good. The UK was good. The US was good. If I'm to rate, I would say US is first, then UK, and then Zambia. If you've watched this video to this point, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe.